Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yata Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Sya Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganaraganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Harijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shivashikam Vitam Sya Om Gyana Timaranda Shankana Shalakaya Chakshuram Militam Yena Tasma Shri Gurave Nama Gurava Bhistam Supurakam Guruganara Sisha Sambhushitam Chintya Samasta Veda Nipanam Shri Rupa Patanagam Govindamidam Ujwalam Varatanum Bhaktiyan Vidam Sundaram Mande Vishwagurun Shah Divyat Bhagavat Prem Nawe Bija Pranam Devam Divyatanum Suchandavananam Balarka Shelanchitam Sandrananda Puram Sadeka Varanam Vairagya Vidyambunim Sri Siddhantanidim Subhakti Lasitam Saraswatanam Varam Bandetam Shubhadam Madeka Sharanam Nyashishvara Sridharam Vanshakapatarubhyascha Kripasindubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Namo Mahabhananyaya Krishna Prima Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gauratavishe Namah. So we're hearing from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita by Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, translation and commentary by Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupad Ki Jai, Srila Bhakti translation and commentary by Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupad, and this is chapter Madhya-lila, chapter 1, the later pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. I'll start with verse 188. This is when Rupa and Sanatan Goswami come before Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Ramakeli. They're prostrating themselves before the Lord, and they have they have some straw in their mouth, which was done as a symbol of humility, that they consider themselves fallen, and so I'll start here where there's Jaya. They're speaking to Mahaprabhu. Jaya Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Doyamoy Patita Pavana Jaya Jaya Mahashai. All glories to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the most merciful Savior of the fallen souls. All glories to the Supreme Personality. Nitya Jate Nitya Sange Kori Nitya Kaj Tomara Agrete Prabhu Kahite Basilaj. My dear Lord, we belong to the lowest class of men, and our associates and employment are also of the lowest type. Therefore, we cannot introduce ourselves to you. We feel very much ashamed standing here before you. So they're very ashamed because they now have taken they've taken employment in the Muslim government. Their names now, they have Muslims' name, Dabir Kash and Sakir Malik, and they consider themselves very fallen. They've adopted all the customs of the Muslims. But they want Mahaprabhu's mercy, and they want to get some relief from their entanglement. So they go, and they cite this verse, Matuyo nashti papatma naparari chakaschana parihare pi lajame kimbruve purushottama. Dear Lord, let us inform you that no one is more sinful than us, nor is there any offender like us. Even if we wanted to mention our sinful activities, we would immediately become ashamed, and what to speak of giving them up. Patita pavana hetu tomarabatar amabai jagate patita nahiyar. The two brothers submitted, Dear Lord, you have incarnated to deliver the fallen souls. You should consider that in this world there is none so fallen as us. Jagai madai dui korile udar tahai udarite shrama nahila tomar. You have delivered the two brothers, Jagai and Madai, but to deliver them, you did not have to exert yourself very much. So we could say that these two brothers, Srila Sanatan and Rupa Goswami, they can consider themselves the most fallen because they were born in Brahmin families, in a Saraswat Brahmin family, very high family, but then their activities, they become associated with the Muslims, and they have Muslim names, and they're serving the Muslims and living as them, so they can say that they're fallen. Whereas with ourselves, we come from the Western society, and we can say the activities of Western society are very degraded, but in one sense, we haven't fallen from anything. we were always like this. So, of course, we can say that according to the Vedic society, we wouldn't be in the Vedic society. We would be outside of the Vedic society. We would be, it's called, but we would be, like Malechas or Yavanas. But I don't know. But in the case of, I would just say, in the case of Rupa and Sanatan, they started out by birth as something high, and then they wound up in that position. But by birth, we didn't start out as anything. So anyway, it seems, you could say it's a technicality, but it seems to me to say you're fallen, and to fall, you have to start from some place where you fell to. Okay. The two brothers submitted, "Dear Lord, you have incarnated to deliver the fallen souls. You should consider that in this world there is none so fallen as us. Jagai madai dui korile udar, tahan udarite shama, nahila tomar." You have delivered the two brothers Jagai and Madai, but to deliver them you did not have to exert yourself very much. Brahmana jati tara navadi pegar, nicha seva nahi kore, nahi nichera kurpar. The brothers Jagai and Madai belonged to the Brahmin caste, and their residence was in the holy place of Navadip. They never served low-class persons, nor were they instruments to abominable activities. Sabayek dosh tara hoy papachar paparasi dohe namabashe tomar. Jagai and Madai had but one fault. They were addicted to sinful activity. However, volumes of sinful activity can be burned to ashes simply by a dim reflection of the chanting of your holy name. Srila Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami presented themselves as being lower than the two brothers Jagai and Madai, who were delivered by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When Rupa and Sanatan compared themselves to Jagai and Madai, they found themselves inferior because the Lord had no trouble in delivering two drunken brothers. This was so because despite the fact that they were addicted to sinful activity, in other ways their life was brilliant. They belonged to the Brahmin caste of Navadip, and such Brahmanas were pious by nature, although they had been addicted to some sinful activities due to bad association. Those unwanted things could vanish. Those unwanted things could vanish simply because of the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. Another point for Jagai and Madai was that as members of a Brahmin family, they did not accept service under anyone. The Shastra strictly forbid a Brahmin to accept service under anyone. The idea is that by accepting a master, one accepts the occupation of a dog. In other words, a dog cannot thrive without having a master. They bark at innocent people just to please the master. Similarly, when one is a servant, he is to perform abominable activities according to the orders of the master. Therefore, when Dabir Kash and Sakir Malik compared their position to that of Jagai and Madai, they found Jagai and Madai's position far better. Jagai and Madai never accepted the position of serving a low-class person, nor were they forced to execute abominable activities under the order of a low-class master. Jagai and Madai chanted the name of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by way of blasphemy, but because they simply chanted his name, they immediately became free from the reactions of sinful activities. Thus later they were saved. Tomara namaloya, tomara korila nindan, senama hoilatara, muktera karan, Jagai Madai uttered your holy name by way of blaspheming you. Fortunately, that holy name became the cause of their deliverance. Jagai Madai hoite koti koti gun, adama patita papi amiduijan. We too are millions and millions of times inferior to Jagai and Madai. We are more degraded, fallen, and sinful than they. So the point they're making is that their position was more fallen than Jagai and Madai, because Jagai and Madai were addicted to sinful activities, as you could say, Rupa and Sanatan, in the employment of the government of the Muslims. They felt they were also addicted to sinful activities, but Rupa and Sanatan Goswami made the point that they had taken employment under the Muslims, and very much so that their position was worse than Jagai and Madai, because Jagai and Madai had never taken that kind of employment, had never taken a master such as a Muslim. So they said their position, Rupa and Sanatan argued their position is worse. Mulecha jati mulecha sevi, kori mulecha karma, go brahmana drohe sange amara sangama. Actually, we belong to the caste of, here it says meat eaters, but the word mulecha, in context of the what's going on, normally the word mulecha in Bengal, especially at this time, will be understood, mulecha means Muslim. Here it's translated as meat eaters, but they're also saying, they say, actually we belong to the caste of meat eaters because we are servants of meat eaters. Indeed, our activities are exactly like those of the meat eaters because we always associate with such people. We are inimical toward the cows and brahmanas. They saying, or you could also, if you put mulechas meaning Muslims, which is really, I would say, the context, they would say, actually we belong to the caste of Muslims because we are servants of Muslims. Indeed, our activities are like those of the Muslims because we always associate with such people. We are inimical towards the cows and Brahmins. Mora karma morahate galaya bandiya kuvishaya vishta garte diache velaya. The two brothers, Sakar Malik and Dabar Kas, very humbly submitted that due to their abominable activities, they were now bound by the neck and hands and had been thrown into a ditch filled with abominable stool-like objects of material sense enjoyment. Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur has explained Ku Vishaya Garta as follows. Because of the activities of the senses, we become subjected to many sense gratificatory processes and are thus entangled by the laws of material nature. This entanglement is called Vishai. When the sense gratificatory processes are executed by pious activity, they're called Suvishaya. The word Su means good and Vishaya means sense objects. When the sense gratificatory activities are performed under sinful conditions, they are called Kuvishaya, bad sense enjoyment. In either case, either Kuvishaya or Suvishaya, there are These are material activities. As such, they are compared to stool. In other words, such things are to be avoided. To become free from suvishaya and kuvishaya, one must engage oneself in the transcendental loving service of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The activities of devotional service are free from the contamination of material qualities. Therefore, to be free from the reactions of suvishaya and kuvishaya, one must take to Krishna consciousness. And that way one will save oneself from contamination. Amudarite bole nahi tribhuvane patita pavana tumi sabetoma bine. No one within the three worlds is sufficiently powerful to deliver us. You are the only savior of the fallen souls. Therefore, there is no one but you. Amudariya jari dekal nijabha patita pavana nama tabe se safal. If you simply deliver us by your transcendental strength, then certainly your name will be known as Patita Pavana, the savior of the fallen souls. Satya ek batakahon shuna doyamoy movinu dayara patra jagate nahoy. Let us speak one word that is very true. Plainly hear us, O merciful one. There is no other object of mercy within the three worlds but us. Moredoya kori kora swadoya safa akila brahmanda tukuka tomaradoya ba. We are the most fallen, therefore by showing us your mercy is most successful. Let the power of your mercy be exhibited throughout the entire universe. So, Srila Sridhar Maharaj has said, to attract the positive, one has to have negativity. Negative will attract the positive. And the negative is humility. One has to present oneself and feel oneself humbly before the Lord, that I am nothing, and I'm very fallen, so therefore I beg for your mercy. Srila Sridhar Maharaj also says that it is true that one will, in this way, be approaching what you can say is the department of mercy. But Srila Guru Maharaj also says that if you're going to approach the Lord, considering oneself to be fallen and to beg for the Lord's mercy, then you have to also be able to show that to other people. You can't ask for mercy for yourself because you're fallen and then be strict about everything and be unmerciful to others. Guru Maharaj says that's hypocrisy. And that will especially be related to fault finding faults in other persons. Dhanyavad. Namrisha paramartam evame shrinu vigyapanam ekam agrataha yarimena daisha setara dayaniyas tava nata durlabaha. Let us submit one piece of information before you, dear Lord. It is not at all false, but it is full of meaning. It is this: if you are not merciful upon us, it will be very, very difficult to find more suitable candidates for your mercy. Apane ayogya deki manet pan koba tatapito maragune upajaya loba. We are very depressed at being unfit candidates for your mercy. Yet since we have heard of your transcendental qualities, we are very much attracted to you. Vamana jaiche chanda darite jahi kore Taichi e Banshamora Utaye Antere. Indeed, we are like a dwarf who wants to capture the moon. Although we are completely unfit, a desire to receive your mercy is awakening within our minds. I like this example given. Indeed, we are like a dwarf who wants to capture the moon. Gives you a sense. I mean, for anybody to capture the moon, how can anyone capture the moon? But even more difficult for a dwarf who's in a lower position. Bhavantam evanucharan nirantara prashanta nishesha mano ratantaraha karaham aikantika nitya kingara praharsha ishami sanata jivitam. By serving you constantly, one is freed from all material desires and is completely pacified. When shall I engage as your eternal servant and always feel joyful to have such a fitting master? In his teachings to Sanatan Goswami, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has declared every living entity to be an eternal servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the constitutional position of all living entities. Just as a dog or servant is very much satisfied to get a competent, perfect master, or a child is completely satisfied to possess a competent father, so the living entity is satisfied by completely engaging in the service of the Supreme Lord. He thereby knows that he has a competent master to save him from all kinds of danger. Unless the living entity comes to the guaranteed protection of the Supreme Lord, he's full of anxiety. This life of anxiety is called material existence. To be completely satisfied and devoid of anxiety, one must come to the position of eternally rendering service to the Supreme Lord. This verse is also from the Stota Ratna of Sri Yamunacharya. No, that verse. Bhavantam evanu charan nirantara prashanta nishesha mano ratantaraha karaham aikantika nitya kingara praharshayishyami sanata jivitam. By serving you constantly, one is freed from all material desires and is completely pacified. When shall I engage as your permanent eternal servant and always feel joyful to have such a fitting master? Shuni Mahaprabhu kohe shuna dabirkas tumi duibai mora puratanadas. After hearing the prayer of Dabirkas and Sakar Malik, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "My dear Dabir Kash, you two brothers are my old servants. Aji hoite du haranama rupa sanatan donya chara tomar donye vate moratman." My dear Sakar Malik, from this day your names will be changed to Srila Rupa and Srila Sanatan. Now please abandon. Now please abandon your humility, for my heart is breaking to see you so humble. My dear Sakar Malik, from this day your name will be changed to Srila Rupa and Srila Sanatan. Now please abandon your humility, for my heart is breaking to see you so humble. Actually, this is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's initiation of Dabirkas and Sakar Malik. They approached the Lord with all humility, and the Lord accepted them as old servants, as eternal servants, and he changed their names. It is to be understood from this that it is essential for a disciple to change his name after initiation. Shanka Chakradi Urdva Pundra Dharanadi Atmalakshanam Tannam Karanam Chaiva Vaishnavatam Ihojate. After initiation, the disciple's name must be changed to indicate that he is a servant of Lord Vishnu. The disciple should also immediately begin marking his belly with tilak, urdhva pundra, especially his forehead. Nope, I said it wrong. The disciple should immediately begin marking his body with tilak, urdhva pundra, especially his forehead. These are spiritual marks, symptoms of a perfect Vaishnava. This is a verse from the Padma Purana, Uttarakanda. A member of the Sahajya Sampradaya does not change his name. Therefore, he cannot be accepted as a Gaudiya Vaishnava. If a person does not change his name after initiation, it is to be understood that he will continue in his bodily conception of life. This, of course, this is all very true, but especially I've seen that with persons who have names that are not Vaishnava names, then the spiritual master, we saw it in the case of Prabhupada and Srila Guru Maharaj and Srila Govinda Maharaj and Srila Acharya Maharaj. The person didn't have a Vaishnava name, then he would change the name at initiation. But for many persons who were born in Indian families who had Vaishnava names since their birth, the name wasn't always changed. Sometimes the name was changed, but mostly it was not changed if they had. Anyway, that's a point, because they already associated with, from birth, with having a name of the Lord. Doinya patri liki more patale barbar se patri dwara jani tomara vyabahar. You have written several letters showing your humility. Mahaprabhu is speaking. You have written several letters showing your humility. I can understand your behavior from those letters. Tomara ridoya ami jani patri dware toma shikaite shloka pataila tomare. By your letters I could understand your heart. Therefore, in order to teach you, I sent you one verse, which is read as follows. Now, this verse is very beautiful. I'll say the verse. And it's very instructive what Mahaprabhu says to Rupa and Sanatan. He says, by your letters I could understand your heart. Therefore, in order to teach you, I sent you one verse which reads as follows. Paravyasanini nari vyagrapi griha karmasu tad evasvadayat yantar tavasanga rasayanam. If a woman is attached to a man other than her husband, she will appear very busy in carrying out her household affairs. But within her heart, she is always relishing feelings of association with her paramour. If a woman is attached to a man other than her husband, she will appear very busy in carrying out her household affairs. But within her heart, she is always relishing feelings of association with her paramour. Goda nikata ashite nahi mora prayojan tomaduha dekite mora ihanagaman. I really had no business in coming to Bengal, but I have come just to see you, two brothers. So first of all, this verse about a woman who has a paramour, she will execute her household duties perfectly. Why? Because she doesn't want to draw any suspicion upon herself. She has a husband, but she also has a paramour, and she doesn't want to draw the suspicion of her husband to herself, so she executes her household duties perfectly. But in her heart, she's doing everything thinking of her lover. This seems this is a very, very a very strong statement by Mahaprabhu. This verse, and what he's saying is that we live in this material world, and sometimes we have to serve so many different masters, but we will always do our activities in such a way that we can continue with our internal consciousness that we will accept and do everything necessary and to maintain our life for those close to us. But at the same time, we're always thinking, we're always doing everything with the idea of its relationship with devotional service and our relationship with the Lord. And we can do many things in this world. We can act and have a material job and have activities and persons who are married, they have to do so much. They have to maintain their family and put their children in school and help them and participate in so many activities. But they try to do them well, and at the same time, the thing that's of paramount importance to them is their connection with the devotional plane and their connection with the Lord. So then he says, then Mahaprabhu says, Godanikata ashite nahi mora prayojan tomaduha dekite mora ihanagaman. I really had no business in coming to Bengal, but I have come just to see you, two brothers. So actually on this, going to Vrindavan, on this trip, Mahaprabhu will be unsuccessful. Because first of all, he went through Bengal, and so many people were very anxious to see Mahaprabhu because he'd been in Puri for some time and then in South India, then back in Puri for some time. So when he came back to Bengal, everywhere he went, thousands of people recognized him as the Lord and the leader of the devotees. They saw him and they all followed him. And that Bengal was ruled by the Muslims, and that becomes a very dangerous position to be recognized as a leader of society, and everywhere he goes, people will follow him. And then on top of that, to rescue Rupa and Sanatan Goswami, he went to the very Ramakeli, where the Muslim, the center of the Muslim government, and all the Muslims live there. And Rupa and Sanatan are serving them, the Nawab. So it's very dangerous to go there. And people have warned him, have warned Mahaprabhu of the danger, because when even the Muslim king had questioned Rupa Goswami about who is this person that so many people are following him. And previously, when the king asked one of the Vaishnavas, he was told, "Oh, he's just some local prophet or something. Don't pay any attention to him." But when he asked Rupa Goswami didn't hesitate. He said, "He is the Supreme Lord, and you are most fortunate that the Lord has come to you." So he said, "Now you are the king. You ask yourself who he is, because you are the king. You can ask yourself, you can search your own heart, who is he?" And then the king said, I see that he is the Supreme Lord. And then the king told his followers, don't bother him, don't disturb him. But whether they will necessarily listen in that respect to the king, or they will still try to, because they are very much against anyone who will revive or give some sense of resistance to the Hindus. So Mahaprabhu coming to Ramakeli, very dangerous. And at the same time, Mahaprabhu did so. Above all else, he will be unsuccessful in going to Vrindavan, but he came to rescue Rupa and Sanatan Goswami. He says, "I really had no business in coming to Bengal, but I have come just to see you two brothers. E mora maner kata keho nahi jane sabe bole kene aila Ramakeli grami." Everyone is asking why I have come to this village of Ramakeli. No one knows my intentions. Balo hoila duibai aila morastane gare jaha maya kichu nakoriya mane It is very good that you two brothers have come to see me. Now you can go home. Do not fear anything. Janme janme tumi dui kingara amar achirate Krishna tomaya koribe udar. Birth after birth, you have been my eternal servants. I'm sure that Krishna will deliver you very soon. Etaboli du harashire dorila dui hate dui bai prabhu pada nila nijamate. The Lord then placed his two hands on the heads of both of them, and in return they immediately placed the lotus feet of the Lord on their heads. Doha alingya prabhu bole Dohe alingya prabhu bolila bhaktagane sabe kripa kori uda raha duijane. After this, the Lord embraced both of them and requested all of the devotees present to be merciful upon them and deliver them. Duijane prabhu kripa deki bhaktagane hari bole bole sabe anandita mane. When all the devotees saw the mercy of the Lord upon the two brothers, they were very much gladdened, and they began to chant the holy name of the Lord. Hari, Hari. Nityananda Haridas Srivas Gadadhar Mukunda Jaganananda Murari Rakeshwar. All the Vaishnava associates of the Lord were present, including Nityananda Prabhu, Haridas Thakur, Srivas Thakur, Gadadhar Pandit, Mukunda, Jaganananda Pandit, Murari, and Vakeshwar. Sabar Chanane Dori, Pade Duibai, Sabe Bole, Danya Tumi, Paile Gosai. In accordance with the instructions of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the two brothers, Rupa and Sanatan, immediately touched the lotus feet of these Vaishnavas, who all became very happy and congratulated the two brothers for having received the mercy of the Lord. Sabhashagya mage chalana samai prabhupade kohekichu korea binoy. After begging the permission of all the Vaishnavas present, the two brothers at the time of their departure humbly submitted something at the lotus feet of the Lord. Ihan hoite chala prabhu, ihan nahikai, jajapi tomare bhakti kore goda raj. They said, Dear Lord, although the king of Bengal, Nawab Hussain Shah, is very respectful toward you, They said, Dear Lord, although the king of Bengal, Nawab Hussain Shah, is very respectful toward you, you have no other business. You have no other business here. Kindly depart from this place. Tatapi Javana Jati Nakore Pratiti Tirta Jatraya Eta Sangata Balo Nahiriti. Although the king is respectful toward you, he still belongs to the Javana class, to the Muslim class, and should not be believed. We think that there is no need for such a great crowd to accompany you on your pilgrimage to Vrindavan. It's like this, so many people following you. Now, the king is respectful to you, but we don't know how much we can trust that. And besides that, there's a great crowd following you, and you're in the country of the Muslims. This will attract attention everywhere you go, and it is dangerous. That he's not saying those words, but he says, although the king is respectful toward you, he still belongs to the Yamana class and should not be believed. We think that there is no need for such a great crowd to accompany you on your pilgrimage to Vrindavan. Jara sange chaliye loka laka koti Vrindavana jatrara e nahi paripati. Dear Lord, you are going to Vrindavan with hundreds and thousands of people following you, and this is not a fitting way to go on a pilgrimage. Jajapi vastuta prabhur kichuna hibai tatapi lokika lila loka cheshtamoy. Although Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was Sri Krishna himself, the Supreme Lord, and was therefore not at all fearful, he still acted like a human being to teach neophytes how to act. Itabole charan bande, gela duijan, Prabhu rase grama hoite chalite hoilaman. Having spoken thus, the two brothers offered prayers to the lotus feet of the Lord and returned to their homes. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then desired to leave that village. Prate Chalyaila Prabhu, he desired to leave Ramakeli. He was not going to stay there longer. He'd accomplished what he went there for. Prate Chalyaila Prabhu, Konaira Natasha, Dekila Sakala Tahan, Krishna Charitamrita. In the morning, the Lord left and went to a place known as Kanai Natashala. While there, he saw many pastimes of Lord Krishna. In those days in Bengal, there were many places known as Kanai Natashala, where pictures of the pastimes of Lord Krishna were kept. People used to go there to see them. This is called Krishna Charitamrita. In Bengal, there are still many places called Harisabha, which indicates a place where local people gather to chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra and discuss the pastimes of Lord Krishna. The word Kanai means Lord Krishna, and Natashala indicates where pastimes are demonstrated. So these places, which at the present moment are called Harishabha, may previously have been known as Kanai Natashala. So, like this, and there's a place in Navadip called Haritala. It is like that, a place where people go to have kirtans and remember the Lord. So the Lord went to a place, the next place after Ramakeli, Kanai Natashala, a place like that, where the Vaishnavas would sometimes, gather. So, Sevratre Prabhu Tahan Shinte Maniman Sange Sangata Balo Nahi Koila Sanatan. That night the Lord considered Sanatan Goswami's proposal that he should not go to Vrindavan followed by so many people. Mathura Jaibami Etalok Sange Kichu Sukha Na Paiba Habe Rasabange. The Lord thought, if I go to Mathura with such crowds behind me, it would not be a very happy situation, for the atmosphere would be disturbed. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu confirms that visiting a holy place like Vrindavan with so many people is simply disturbing. He would not find the happiness he desired by visiting such holy places in that way. Ekaki Jaiba Kimva Sange Ekjan Tabe Se Shobaye Vrindavan. The Lord concluded that he would go alone to Vrindavan, or at most would take only one person as his companion. In that way, going to Vrindavan would be very pleasant. Eta Chinti Prata Kale Ganga Snan Kori Nilachale Jaboli Chalila Gorahari. Thinking like this, the Lord took his morning bath in the Ganges and started for Nilachala, saying, I shall go there. So going to Nilacha means he decided, though he's up in Bengal, he went to Bengal for two reasons, he said. Janani and Janavi, two reasons. Janavi means he went through Bengal to go. The Janani means to see his mother Sachi, and Janavi means to see the holy river, the Ganges, to see his mother and bathe in the Ganges. He went through Bengal because in the Ganges, that's where the Ganges is flowing, and he will see his mother Sachi on this trip through Bengal. And also we can see the main purpose is to deliver Rupa and Sanatan. But then after that, he reflects on what Sanatan said. Sanatan said, don't go to Vrindavan with so many people. It's not the way to go to Vrindavan. And then Mahaprabhu turned back and decided to not proceed any further. He will go back to Jagannath Puri. And previously, the devotee Nisringananda Brahmachari had been in his serving Mahaprabhu in his mind and decorating the road with flowers and with trees and bathing places and jewels. He'd been mentally making the whole trip of the Lord and serving him within his mind, which was a very divine path that he was preparing for Mahaprabhu, and that Nrsinga Brahmachari had announced previously that in his mind he could not continue building the road with flowers and decorating the road and with trees and bathing places and birds and everything. In his mind, Nrsingananda Brahmachari could not do that any further than Kanai Natashala. So then he told everyone, on this trip, Mahaprabhu won't go to Vrindavan. So then later, Mahaprabhu decides, I will not go through Bengal and attract so many people. He went through the jungle. He went through Jharikanda with the animals and everything. Thinking like this, the Lord took his morning bath in the Ganges and started for Nilachala, saying, I shall go there. E mata chali chali aila Shantipure, Dina Pancha Shata Rohila Acharjaragare. Walking and walking, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu arrived at Shantipur and remained at the house of Advaita Acharya for 5 to 7 days. Sachi Devi Ani Dhare Koila Namaskar Shatadina Taratai Bhikka Vyabhar. Taking this opportunity, Srila Advaita Acharya Prabhu sent for Mother Sachi Devi, and she remained at his house for 7 days to prepare the meals for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Tara Agyaloya Puna Korila Gamane Vinoi Koriya Vidai Dila Bhaktagane. Taking permission from his mother, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then started for Jagannath Puri. When the devotees followed him, he humbly begged them to remain and bade them all farewell. Hari Haraya Nama Krishna Jaravaya Nama Hari Haraya Nama Krishna Jaravaya Nama Jaravaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Nama Jaravaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Nama Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan Giridhari Gopinatha Maranaman Giridhari Gopinatha Maranamohan Sri Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Chandra Sri Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Chandra Gananara Shiva Sadi Gora Bhakta Vrinda Gananara Shiva Sadi Gora Bhakta Vrinda Jai Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Jai Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Sri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunath Sri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunath Echai Gosai Kori Chanana Bandhan Echai Gosai Kori Chanana Bandhan Jaoite Vignana Shamista Puran Jaoite Vignana Shamista Puran Echai Gosai Jarmui Taranas Echai Gosai Jarmui Taranas Dasavar Pada Renu Mora Panchagras Dasavar Pada Renu Mora Panchagras Tadir Charana Sevi Bhakta Sanibas Tadir Charana Sevi Bhakta Sanibas Janame Janame More Abilas Janame Janame More Abilas Echai Gosai Jabe Braje Koila Bas Echai Gosai Jabe Braje Koila Bas Radha Krishna Nitya Lila Korila Prakash Radha Krishna Nitya Lila Korila Prakash Anande bolo Hari Bhaja Vrindavan. Anande bolo Hari Bhaja Vrindavan. Shri Guru Vaishnava Pade Majai Aman. Shri Guru Vaishnava Pade Majai Aman. Shri Guru Vaishnava Pad Padma Koriyas. Shri Guru Vaishnava Pad Padma Koriyas. Hare Nam Sankirtana Kohe Narata Modas. Hare Nam Sankirtana Kohe Narata Modas. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Nitai Gora Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Nitai Gora Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo. Jai Saparikara Shri Guru Guranga Gandharvika Giriraju Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Nirmalacharya Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajaka Ashtatana Sandashi Shrimad Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajaka Ashtatana Sandashi Shrimad Srila Bhakti Rakak Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Bhagavan Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Rupanuga Guru Bharga Ki Jai. Namachari Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Sri Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunath Sri Jiva Gopal Bhattadash Raghunath Shad Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai. Prem Se Go Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Vishvaparanya Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupad Ki Jai. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Ki Jai. Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai. Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupad Ki Jai. Shri Navadip Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Ki Jai. Saparshada Shri Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai. Saparshada Shriman Mahaprabhu Ki Jai. Shri Koladvi Ki Jai. Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat Ki Jai. Soquel Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Seva Ashram Ki Jai. Ganga Devi Ki Jai. Tulasi Maharani Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Radha Krishna Go Gopi Govardhan Sham Kuna Radha Kunda Kalindi Yamuna Jo Ki Jai. Shri Purushottam Dham Ki Jai. Baladev Subhadra Jagannath Ju Ki Jai. All the assembled devotees Ki Jai. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo.